Hello, Seiiti Arata. Technology is evolving so quickly that in the near future, much sooner than you think, we will be living in a world without jobs. And that is why you need to start thinking now about what you're going to do when these jobs disappear. This is not a futuristic hypothesis. Human labor is already being replaced by machines, robots, and algorithms, and this is all happening at an exponential rate. It is difficult for us to understand how close we are to living in a world without jobs, because we think in a linear way. In fact, many professions have already disappeared. So be careful if you think that your particular case is different, that your profession is an exception, or that your area of work is not at risk. In the very near future, robots will be able to do any job. And what will you do with your life when it happens? Most jobs are simply a routine, and computers are much better than human beings at following routines. Many of the jobs in the world today involve processes, routines, decision-making based on certain prerequisites. For every desired outcome in a job, there are steps that you need to follow. Successful companies have detailed procedure manuals outlining the processes that the employees should follow to standardize the outcome. The issue is that computers are more efficient than humans at performing routine work. Computers do this through well-developed algorithms. You probably heard already of the word algorithm. But do you know what an algorithm is? An algorithm is basically a sequence of actions that are required to obtain a solution to some type of a problem. An algorithm is like a recipe to bake a cake. The algorithm lists and executes all the steps to turn egg and flour and sugar and yeast into a finished cake. These algorithms are becoming more and more sophisticated. Instead of using the same recipe, they learn something new each time that the recipe is executed. For example, imagine that the algorithm for producing cakes is looking for the optimal time and temperature to bake the perfect cake. Some cakes will come out with a dark caramel color, others with a more golden color, and some much lighter. And then the algorithm will calculate which color is the most popular according to the number of sales. This information is used to improve the algorithm and decide which color is ideal. This is an example of machine learning, and that is why your job, whatever job is at risk. At first, machines replaced the more physical, the more routine jobs. For example, part of the banker's work was replaced by ATMs. Modern lifts replaced the lift attendants. Self-checkout machines have already replaced supermarket cashiers. For a long time, people with a more specialized or creative job felt safe from the advance of machine technology. However, due to machine learning and an evolution at an exponential rate, they no longer feel so secure. Before, machines only replaced physical tasks. Now, machines can also replace our cognitive tasks. Today, there are already robots carrying out highly complex surgical procedures and others that are being used in law firms. There are already algorithms that can write books, compose music, and even direct films. Even if your job requires a lot of human intelligence, we cannot say that it is immune to automation and artificial intelligence processes. Robots are able to replace every kind of employee, and you need to prepare yourself to live in a world without jobs. Jobs will come to an end, but there will still be work to do. Those who constantly improve will always have work to do. With a large number of people replaced by machines, many families will suffer without the necessary income to survive. Some specialists say even that governments will have to establish a universal basic income to help the population that has been replaced by robots. Does that mean that you can stop now working? Just dream of receiving some free money from the government? Of course not. You can use your intelligence to adapt to the new world without depending on anyone. You need to prepare yourself to become one of the people who will be able to offer relevant work, even in a world where machines do all the jobs. Depending on your age, it is unlikely that you will reach the end of your career and still work in a traditional job. Forget about fixed working hours, a physical office, benefits like transportation, food, health insurance. This model belongs in the past. What you will get in the near future is not a job, but work. You have guaranteed work as long as you develop your intelligence, that you adapt to changes, and you are in the process of continuous development. This is the only way you will continue to be relevant despite the development of machines. And to do this, first you have to think strategically. First, you have to evaluate the degree of risk in an area that you work in. The more routine your activity involves, the greater the chances that it will soon be replaced. The more creative, the more complex the activity is, the lower the risk. Second, even if you are in an area with less risk, you still have to think ahead to specialize in jobs that will take longer to be replaced. And when you realize that job is also at risk, now you have to start preparing for another job. The idea of having a single career throughout life is also a concept of the past. Your life will have different phases. You do different types of work as you adapt to the market. Yes, it will be more demanding than how it was in the past. Before, people would just simply choose a profession. They would stick to it for the rest of their lives. Today, complete career transitions are very common. The ability to learn is essential. That is why the Seiiti Arata Academy is one of our most popular trainings. You need to learn how to learn. And in addition to making career transitions, there is another way to prepare yourself for the world without jobs. To become an entrepreneur by owning the machines. If you cannot beat the robots, join them. Robots and algorithms will soon be able to replace basically all jobs. But some people will always have a job. The people who own the robots. In a world where machines are doing more and more, including cognitive, creative functions, the flow of wealth goes to entrepreneurs. Therefore, one of the best ways of joining the robots in a future without jobs is by owning them. These successful entrepreneurs will be the ones who figure out how to increase product efficiency and service offerings through technology. Obviously, you don't have to try to develop robots, develop algorithms. This is a highly competitive industry. However, there will be plenty of room for small businesses that offer auxiliary, complementary services to this industry. And if you don't feel like being an entrepreneur, you can always educate yourself financially. You can invest in technology companies by buying their shares. This guarantees you passive income, which is money that you earn regardless of whether you work or not in the technology industries. By investing in the right companies, you will receive dividends, or you can basically sell the shares at a higher price later with capital gains. If you can't own the machines, at least be the professional who teaches the robots. You can also join the robots by being the person who programs them. You can choose a job in the field of technology. For example, you can specialize in programming, in robotics, machine learning, artificial intelligence, or any other area that is essential to make these machines work. Or you can be the specialist in the work that will be learned by the machines. For example, you can think of the robot that currently executes high-precision surgery. Okay, this robot has to be programmed through the best practices from specialist doctors, extensive lists of approved procedures. Before machines do a job, they have to learn the recipe, the steps, the algorithm, and they often learn this from a human. Regardless of the path that you choose, understand that this is an inevitable future. The advance of machines over human labor will continue. Fighting the future is like defending transport by horseback when the first automobiles were invented. Instead of being anti-technology, just think strategically about how you can partner with technology. Look for ways to make sure that your work is always relevant with this new world without jobs. And if you don't, you risk being just one more in a crowd of unemployed people who will need to rely on an uncertain universal basic income from the government in order to survive. Jobs, as we know them today, are going to end very soon. No matter what your profession is, it is very likely that it will soon be fully or partially replaced by robots. But even though jobs will disappear, the need for work will continue. And you can meet those needs by becoming an adaptable professional in a process of continuous improvement. Or you can join the robots by acting as an entrepreneur, a programmer, or being a professional who will teach the machines. And to do all this, you need to invest in your intelligence. You need to think strategically, to anticipate, to be one step ahead at all times. As you are interested in developing your intelligence in this way, I invite you to watch a class from the Seiiti Arata Academy course to free your brain's full potential. And you can watch this class right now by visiting the link arata.se/intelligence.